Just 1 or 2 more minutes to give people the possibility to connect. Hello, Antoon. Just saw your message. Good morning. Okay, so let's just slowly begin. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for joining the webinar today. My name is Jeanette Bolter, and I am the coordinator of the ENTRANCE project. The intention of the webinar this morning is to have a presentation from the EIB in regard to the funding mechanisms for providers of solutions, sustainable transport and mobility solutions to boost their European uptake. So what we will be doing today is I will briefly be giving you an introduction and the presentation of the ENTRANCE project and what will be the upcoming ENTRANCE Matchmaking Platform, which we will be using or launching in September. And it will be a platform that the solution providers of Europe, solution providers to obtain sustainable transport and mobility sector, will be able to use in order to do matchmaking with potential buyers or with potential investors, or with the final intention of supporting you in the uptake and scale up of your sustainable and innovative solutions. Once I have done the presentation of the project, I will leave the word to EIB, in this case to Juliette and Osman, in order to do a presentation of the EIB funding mechanisms, and also they will be giving you a couple of examples of how the deployment of projects that scale up the innovative transport solutions have been supported previously by EIB. And finally, we will be having a round of questions and answers and a discussion on the specific financing that EIB can offer, including also the Future Mobility Facility. I do inform you already that for dissemination purposes, this webinar will be recorded. You will not be able to speak, nor we will be able to see you, but all questions, please don't hesitate to put them directly into the chat. And then we will make sure to answer them throughout the webinar, maybe especially during the question and answer round. So I will just directly go to it. 1 second. There we go. So the presenters of today, besides from myself, so I'm Jeanette Bolter. I'm a senior innovation consultant at P&O Consultants. More specifically, I am based in Spain. And then we have also Juliette Dormadou, who is an innovation finance advisory. So she is working for the European Investment Bank, and she will be presenting today the financial opportunities in collaboration with Osman Yilmaz, who is specifically working with the transport sector, and more specifically with air, maritime, and innovative transport and the mobility division. So looking into very briefly a presentation of the Entrance Matchmaking Platform and the Entrance project, just to inform you that this is a project that has been financed by the European Commission under Horizon 2020. You can see there the specific topic that we presented this to. This is a coordination and support actions where we have received 1.5 million euros in order to set up both the matchmaking platform as well as offline complementary services during the next 36 months. So we kicked off the project on the 1st of January 2021, and we will be continuing the activities until the end of 2023. And it is very important also to mention that the intention is that although the project does end in 2023, our intention is to keep supporting the platform and keeping it alive also after the project ends. So we of course recommend that you enter this. The consortium that we are collaborating with, we are 15 partners, where you can see from here that we have representatives from the different transport sectors in Europe. So we do cover in the project all of the transport modes, going from air, maritime, rail, road to urban mobility also. We have a couple of technology providers who are in charge of building up the platform. And we also have a representative from the European Enterprise Network through Itainova. And besides from that, we also have a couple of consultancy firms, one being ourselves and EUDA, who is in charge of all of the dissemination activities. The challenge of the Entrance project is based on the urgency of really implementing more effective, innovative measures in order to create a cleaner and more sustainable mobility area. In that aspect, it is quite a challenge for many first-of-a-kind and innovative solutions to really get visibility and to get the approval of the industrial players that can finally do the uptake of their solutions, and to have these companies really try out innovative solution, because there is, of course, for them quite a relevant risk in testing out new types of solutions. So in that sense, many innovative solutions are facing a very harsh competition with the traditional and existing solutions. On the other hand, accessing financing opportunities is quite a huge bottleneck also for these innovative solutions, meaning that the companies really struggle to raise the sufficient funding in order to reach the market. And this means that Europe is really losing out on their competitive advantage if you compare it to the United States and also very big parts of Asia. On the other hand, and also lastly, there is a very high need for lowering the risk in acquisition of innovative solutions, where it is very important to take into consideration the possibility of purchase aggregation and collateral service contracts, where Entrance can really support the users of the innovative solutions in order to overcome the technologies that are connected to the embedding innovations. Second, the objective of Entrance is, as I have mentioned, the creation of an innovative European online matchmaking platform where solution providers, potential buyers, and also investors can register themselves, and the system will automatically be matching the different actors, different stakeholders that have similar interest, meaning that this will provide the opportunity for the solution providers to automatically get connected with potential buyers or with potential investors that have a specific interest in their solution. All of this is done also with the support of complementary offline services that I will describe to you in just a minute. And with all of this, the final objective is to upscale the first-of-a-kind sustainable transport and mobility solutions by thereby reducing the European CO2 emissions and pollutants caused by the transport and mobility sector. The way that the project has been structured is that we look into the supply, demand, and finance triangle. Supply meaning all types of organizations that provide the first-of-a-kind transport mobility solutions. The demand meaning the potential buyers, and the finance can either be public or private investors, but it can also mean European funding opportunities such as the European Innovation Council, the Connecting Europe facility, and of course also very relevant to the webinar today, the European Investment Bank. The way that we do this, we do it through 5 concept pillars. One is to identify and engage all types of stakeholders directly from the demand, supply, and finance. We will be matching these solution providers, buyers, and finance opportunities, thereby also providing access to finance and facilitating purchase aggregation and de-risk the market uptake. And finally, we have a high focus also on cross-fertilization with other European initiatives and other European associations and organizations that are working within the transport and mobility sector. We do this through 4 concept facilitators. One, very related also to what we're doing today, are training and brokerage events. We will also offer an entrance secretariat, which is actually being managed by me together with my colleague Edgar, where we can provide you with support and with advice on how to access public finance opportunities. And we will also be providing, as mentioned, a specific partner will be providing a neutral trustee for the potential buyers in order to promote the purchase aggregation and to orchestrate in a neutral manner. And finally, we'll also be providing innovation finance support services to specific startup SMEs and solution providers that will actually be selected through our brokerage events that we will be celebrating throughout the next 3 years. The first brokerage event will take place in November this year, so we will make sure that you receive more information about this event. It will be online, so we will still not be organizing face-to-face events, but we hope that it would be possible to do this for next year. As you can see, the way that we do this is through a matchmaking accelerated funnel workflow, which sounds very complicated, but it's actually quite straightforward. As mentioned, we attract all of the stakeholders, we engage them through all of our activities and support them in really connecting and doing a very specific and interest-based matchmaking. Thereafter, we promote the specific collaboration, all thereby hoping that it will end up in final market uptake. The impact, of course, will be to increase the European uptake of these innovative solutions within the transport mobility sector, thereby having a high CO2 emission reduction in Europe, and actually in that way contributing very significantly to the sustainability goals of Europe for 2030 and 2050. So that is just my very quick introduction. You have here the link in order to enter what is currently the website. There you can already do a pre-registration for the platform that we will launch in September. Otherwise, you will be receiving information about the launching of this platform, so you can register once it's actually launched. And at this point, I will be leaving the word to Juliette.
Hi, thanks, Jeanette. Hopefully everybody can hear me and see me fine. I'm Juliet Damadu from the Innovation Finance Advisory team here at the EIB, together with my colleague Ozan Yilmaz from the technical side of the bank. We'll be here to discuss what EIB is and does, our aims and interests with regards to sustainable transport and mobility, what the bank can offer with regards to funding, and also hopefully provide you with some examples of projects that we currently have or we're currently working on or have worked on. We hope to leave time at the end for some questions that you may have and for clarity purposes. But essentially, ultimately, we hope that you leave the webinar with a good sense of what is available for you in terms of funding your projects from the EIB. All right, with that, can you see the slides? Is that okay? Yes, okay. All right.
Yes.
First of all, let's start with a little overview of who we are. So we're the European Investment Bank and also known as the EIB, now more commonly referred to as the EU Climate Bank. The bank is essentially the investment banking and lending arm of the European Union, and it's the largest multilateral lender in the world and also the largest multilateral borrower. Our peers include the IFC, which is the lending arm of the World Bank, and also Asian and African development banks alike. The group itself is governed by the European Union member states, and as such, we have a close relationship with the member states and also the European Commission. But having said that, and despite the EIB essentially being a public body, we are financially autonomous and raise our own money on the open markets and largely done so through bond issues. The EIB group itself consists of we, the EIB, and our sister fund, the European Investment Fund. And with our strong AAA credit rating, this enables us to raise capital at favorable rates, which in turn we can pass on to clients as much as possible. And we use the money that we do raise to invest in just about every geography and across most sectors. But our priority areas for investments are climate, infrastructure, innovation and skills, small businesses, and such. In addition, EIB lending focuses on the social and economic cohesion within the EU itself, and more a developmental angle outside of the EU. So our headquarters are here in Luxembourg, raining today, but hopefully the sun is shining on sustainable finance and transport as always. We have around 3,000 staff, of which not only finance professionals, we have engineers such as Ozan, sector economists and socio-environmental experts as well within our base. Of course, more information is available on our website, www.eib.org. Now, as the Climate Bank, we're no strangers to climate action or sustainability. And although these topics have become more mainstream in recent times, it's actually been something that's been important to EIB for many years. For example, back in 2007, EIB pioneered the first green bonds, and we issued the world's first climate awareness bond, which exclusively allocated funding to climate change mitigating activities. Then in 2018, we launched our first sustainability awareness bond, which allowed us to extend our green approach to other environmental and social policy objectives such as gender awareness or digitalization, etc. The EIB remains the world's leading supranational issue of green and sustainability bonds. And since inception of these, we've raised over 38 billion euros across 17 different currencies. And taking stock of what we've actually done in terms of projects themselves, since 2012, we've provided 197 billion euros of finance to projects that protect the environment, essentially aiming to reduce emissions and help countries adapt to the impacts of climate change. Even last year, despite the global coronavirus pandemic taking up focus of the world, EIB still managed to deploy 24.2 billion euros to fight climate change. And this was around 40% of our funding. Now, despite these achievements, we're far from finished. One of our climate objectives is that by 2025, we aim to increase the share of our financing dedicated to climate action and environmental sustainability to at least 50%. So also, on top of that, we hope that by 2030, our lending to such projects should increase to 1 trillion euros. Now that you have an idea of our green credentials, let's say, let's move on to why we are all here today, the topic of transportation and mobility from the sustainability angle. Now, in terms of transport, it's the largest single sector of EIB activity and accounts for around 23% of our group lending activity. And we believe that the new mobility business models and technologies play a crucial role in enabling the transformation of transport towards zero emission standards. And that's why the bank's focus has essentially broadened from focusing previously on larger infrastructure projects, but now to more actively supporting smaller, innovative ones that are pushing the envelope. And as such, our group aim is to promote research, development, and innovation in cutting-edge technologies such as alternative fuels, e-mobility, autonomous driving, and AI, for example. But fundamentally, we aim to accelerate the uptake of sustainable transport whilst also attracting investment from the private sector. Often there's talk about EIB, sort of pushing out the private sector because our fees are so low, but actually that's not our aim at all. We try to keep projects costs as low as possible for the promoter, but crowd in private sector investment to ensure balanced regional development all at the same time. Now, in line with our corporate climate and sustainability objectives, the two things that we do consider when investing in transport are firstly that the transportation will be cleaner, that it'll be greener and will be safer and add benefit to Europeans' lives. And secondly, we also like to consider that it will strengthen the connectivity across Europe and beyond. So scalability is a strong angle that we're interested in there. Now, in addition to our financing, we provide technical assistance and advisory support, and we'll touch on those points in a few slides later on. But for the time being, let's focus on what EIB provides in terms of financing. Now, there we go. As an organization, we see that private investors are hesitant to invest in green mobility solutions, and mainly because most urban transport systems don't cover their operating and maintenance costs, or let alone capital expenses. And another issue, often we find that upgrading to environmentally friendly vehicles or mass transportation requires large investments. So therefore, in cooperation with the European Commission, we developed two financial instruments that specifically target the decarbonisation of transport and mobility. These being the Cleaner Transport Facility on the left and the Future Mobility Facility on the right. And just to be clear, these facilities are mainly targeted at helping SMEs access finance for innovative green, clean tech projects. And then through these facilities, we have so far been able to finance projects such as EV charging stations and networks, refueling facilities, and deployment of electric shuttles and green shipping, etc. And we'll share some examples with you later on, but just an idea of what these facilities have helped us to achieve so far. Now, in terms of the Cleaner Transport Facility, this focuses on funding projects that deploy alternative fuels, and such fuels can include electric, hydrogen, biofuels, and such. And you'll see here that, an example of the indicative terms. Now, of course, terms are more so transaction specific, but just to provide a high-level overview of what is available, the funding instruments are generally loans, guarantees, or quasi-equity. The loans can also be subordinated, Guarantees can be provided, but of course it's all subject to the transaction dynamics and specifics and credit metrics. And quasi-equity, essentially, that we call it in-house venture debt, but we'll get onto that in a slide later on. In terms of the loan size, EIB minimum lending is 7.5 million. Now, typically we prefer offering loans greater than 25 million. So to give you an idea specifically here, our minimum is 7.5 million, and ordinarily EIB funds up to 50% of eligible project cost. So therefore, one would expect the project minimum to be around 15 million in order for us to provide a minimum of 7.5 million. So not on the small side, but small for us, let's say. Now, in terms of what the funding will actually cover, so the eligible costs, we look to cover the infrastructure and the assets, so vehicles, whatever tangible assets really need to be bought or developed by the promoter. We also fund the project preparation and implementation costs. Now, with regards to the Future Mobility Facility, this is targeted at new mobility startups at growth stage. And it targets projects in the transport sector that are looking to deploy innovative technologies. And it also aims to mobilize private sector investments within this clean, digital, and automated space. Should you wish, of course, Ozan can go into more detail about the types of technology a bit later on. But again, just to give you an idea of the funding available, the projects must involve the construction of new assets or the improvement of existing ones. And it supports essentially the deployment of projects that reduce carbon emissions or increase energy efficiency and or boost technological innovation. Similar indicative terms to the Clean Transport Facility in terms of the instruments and the loan size available. And the eligibility there seems a bit more stricter with regards to focus on clean mobility, digital mobility solutions, automated, and telecoms and energy. Now, in terms of the financing offered, if you're a project promoter, you may be wondering what the benefits of either of these lending facilities could be to you in your daily life. Well, the benefits of achieving financing under either of them include the following, really. First of all, if you have a high-risk project that has a viable business model, then these are for you, because we found that most commercial banks are somewhat reticent to finance first-of-a-kind projects, or generally speaking, products or services that don't yet have an established market. So therefore, through our rigorous appraisal process, we aim to select the most purposeful and viable projects. Now, through our funding, we aim to bring a level of comfort and commitment to the markets to encourage the crowding in of private sector lenders and investors. So, as mentioned earlier, EIB funds up to 50% of eligible project costs. So, as such, it's up to the promoter to determine how they wish to fund the remaining 50%, whether through equity, whether through grants, whether through debt from external sources, or a combination of the alternatives. So both the Cleaner Transport Facility and the Future Mobility Facility offer long tenors as well, up to 15 years, alongside competitive pricing. And of course, I can't go into detail on the exact pricing as each is transaction specific. However, as mentioned earlier, EIB objective is always to offer as low financing costs as possible. Another benefit to promoters really is that both facilities allow for blending of the financing, and they also offer advisory services support. Now, blending is a combination, is allowing the promoter really a combination of debt and or equity with grants. For example, the Future Mobility Facility itself is a thematic financing instrument under the European Commission's CEF debt instrument. And it allows for individual projects to combine funding from, say, an EU, national, or regional grant, alongside, say, a loan from EIB and or equity as well. So therefore, it gives you the flexibility to fund your project as wholly and holistically as possible in order to get it off the ground and achieve the growth dynamics that you require. Now, last of all, I think that achieving funding under either of the facilities provides quite a good quality stamp, and it does provide a positive signaling effect to the markets. Basically, if your project is good enough to, say, achieve funding under European Commission or EIB financing solution, then it's essentially saying to lenders and investors that this is an attractive project, and it's giving the sign that the project has been thoroughly vetted, the project will likely work, and you must know what you're doing, basically, as a promoter. But above all, of course, we expect other lenders and investors to do their own due diligence and not rely on ours. However, it's commonly understood that EIB's processes are rather rigorous. Now, in terms of the financing for growth companies, because as mentioned earlier, both facilities largely are for the benefits of SMEs. Now, the financing offered under both the Clean Transport Facility and the Future Mobility Facility come in the form of loans, and these include subordinated loans, quasi-equity, and guarantees. Now, quasi-equity, or venture debt as we prefer to call it, is an equity-like instrument for young, innovative companies that are directly available here at the EIB to support you with. So just working through the slides, to give you an idea of who venture debt would be appealing to, we imagine that you'd be an innovative, driven company with growth and a lot of intellectual property. You'd imagine that you're also a startup or mid-cap with less than 3,000 employees and growing. Most of our projects really are from companies with, say, up to 3 people to 300 people. Not so many with the 3,000 part, but all are welcome that fall within the bucket. We also expect you to already raise some Series B or C equity. So therefore, you're at the growth or developmental stage. So essentially looking to go up one step and sort of boost your project to either deployment or commercialization stage. We also look for promoters that are strong and have sustainable business models with professional management team, so that you've considered where you are, where you've been as a company, where you are and where you want to go, that your management team have experience in what they're doing, they have past experience maybe from industry, but together as a team, you're solid in the sense that you know this market, you know this product, you know what you're doing. Because ultimately, EIB, we are an investment bank. We're not looking to come and run your project for you. So we need to have faith in that the management team are strong in what they're doing. And with regards to the venture debt and with it being offered to SMEs and mid-caps, I think it's important to highlight the fact that often the financing structure includes a lot of flexibility here. So it's not, say, the normal EIB type loan, or say not just EIB, the normal vanilla type loan where you have a loan, you have certain repayment periods, and fixed amounts that you are to pay back, or floating. With venture debt, the financing structure can include bullet repayments. It can include remuneration linked to equity. It can include, generally it's bespoke financing. So loans can be secured or unsecured. And there's different levels of subordination, including contingent or participating. What's key to put across to a lot of, say, startups and SMEs, because we find that promoters, you've spent a lot of time, a lot of years, a lot of sweat into getting their company and their products up to a certain level, and then they hear venture debt, that it's quasi-equity. The equity word kind of freaks people out a little bit, thinking that EIB is coming to take over the equity of your company. But we are actually non-dilutive. We don't look to get involved with the day-to-day activities or any of those purposes. It's merely more of a protection purpose for us, but more than likely, we just sort of have a very hands-off approach. The EIB assumes no direct involvement in the daily management. All right, moving on to some technical assistance. Now, to support promoters in getting the projects up to, say, the technical standards required for EIB and for EU funding in general, and also for being worthy of financing from third parties, we offer technical assistance and advisory services. Now, technical assistance can be offered through ELENA, which stands for European Local Energy Assistance. And it's a grant scheme offered by the European Commission, through which EIB itself provides technical support to projects focused on developing either energy efficiency, sustainable residential buildings, or urban transport and mobility. Now, the benefit of technical assistance from ELENA is to encourage and support the aggregation of different projects, so as to essentially increase the attractiveness for contractors and financiers. And typically, ELENA supports investment programs or projects of more than 30 million euros and such. And ideally, there should be a 3 or 4 year implementation period for them. Now, the grant can be used to finance costs related to, as we've listed here, just a few: feasibility and market studies, business plans, program structuring, audits and financial structuring, preparation of tendering procedures, etc. Of course, if you have more defined questions on this, then this would be sort of Ozan's remit. I'm sure he can elaborate further there. But as always, there are further details available on our website. In terms of the advisory services offered, this is the side that I work on. And really, projects can benefit from financial advice from our team, the Innovation Finance Advisory team here at EIB. More specifically, within that, the Project Advisory Unit. And so within the Project Advisory side of our team, we look to support promoters in developing their projects to the point that essentially they can have a good and functioning and working investment memorandum that can be used to try and access other financing or other investing, but equally that we can pass on to the EIB lending team and help you towards achieving and accessing finance from EIB. Ordinarily, we work with promoters to develop the project pipeline. We review the projects to identify gaps or weaknesses in business plans or strategy and development, etc., and try to advise on improvements. We also advise on other business areas such as RDI plans and such. But the bread and butter of our work is identifying optimal financing solutions for projects that enable them to then achieve the maximum access to finance, both within and outside the EIB group. Of course, if you would like to take EIB finance, we're more than happy to help you and assist you with that. But there is no requirement for you to take EIB financing if you come through advisory services, of course. Now, on the back of this, we look to create contacts between promoters in-house and also using our wide network amongst the market. So often we try to connect promoters, so let's say they are looking for some equity funding, we will try and connect them with investors or equity houses in our wide database. Look at the ones that will be more specific to the activities of the promoter, and there try and foster some relationships, and hopefully the promoter will be in a position to obtain equity funding if attractive to the relevant equity houses. Ultimately, our aim, though, is to provide financial advisory. So we provide the advice. Should you wish to take it, excellent. If you don't wish to take it, excellent also, but it's also in everybody's benefit for the advice, obviously, to be taken and the growth plans to be achieved. I think I should highlight that one of our main focuses, or ultimate focuses, is to help promoters achieve strategic development of their projects. And that includes market development and the actual project development itself. So it's not just purely the financial, but it's the financial sides with respect to driving those elements of the project. But notable of all, I think I should highlight that financial advisory provided is free. So you know, if we find your project interesting, if we're looking to work with you and develop it so that you can get to a point that you can access the requisite funding, you can relax in the fact that we will not be sending you an invoice for our services at the end. The work is completely free. And now just, I guess, to give you an idea of what we have or are doing, I'll pass over to my colleague, Ozan, who will share some examples with you.
So thank you very much, Juliet, for the presentation. So as Juliet said, in fact, in this part of the presentation, we will give you some example cases where, sorry for my voice, where feature mobility, especially feature mobility, has been used. One example, the first example is a software as a service. So this is again a scaling up a solution, a software as a service solution, and the EIB financing, in fact, is targeted to support the scaling up of this platform. In this case, the project is about an intermediary company. So the project is about financing of this intermediary company's investment on their digital platform. And then this digital platform, in fact, is intended to use connected different partners in the mobility market. So it is about connecting the demand side with the supply side with an innovative way. So first of all, the project has, as Juliet said, in fact, the EIB financing is important for projects, especially for growth companies. But at the same time, EIB is also looking at how these projects are contributing to welfare of the society. In other words, how the project is beneficial to the whole society. So we are also looking at from this perspective the projects, and what we can say about this project. It is a platform. It's a digital platform, which is also a priority in future mobility. It is about complementing the transit backbone of cities. This is also one important part, so complementary to the public transport, and also it is supporting the first mile and last mile options, which may be missing in many cities, and which is a really important problem of the urban mobility. And also this project is also supporting in an indirect way reducing private car ownership, because it is providing transport options complementary to public transport, and also connecting the dots between missing links. It is contributing to reducing private car ownership and also private car use. So in this perspective, we are expecting this project will also contribute to the reducing traffic congestion and also the emissions. So this is we don't disclose the names of this project, but we can say advisory services has supported in project development phase, and now it is under EIB project appraisal for financing. Another example, we can give this project as a mobility as a service example, MAS example. Again, it is an IT platform, a digital platform. This platform is supporting the shared and electric mobility services, notably car sharing, EV car sharing in different countries and cities in the European Union. This project has received an EIB financing, and what we have we have also explored how this project contributes to the society. And basically, the project is an enabler, a facilitator for EV shared mobility. Therefore, the project is contributing to decarbonization in transport, and also it is also improving air quality in cities, which is a real severe problem in major cities, especially in major cities. And also the project is, as said before, it is facilitating EV car sharing business, and then in this way the project also contributes to improving electric mobility supply by enabling these EV transport options to the users. This is indirectly supporting EV industry. So this is also in the growing stage, and which is also very positive as an indirect benefit of this project. So another example, this is, in fact, we have tried to list different cases for different fields, and this example is from autonomous driving. Again, we don't disclose the name of the project. This is under also EIB financing appraisal stage, so this hasn't received any EIB financing yet. But it is about, again, a scaling up of the technology and to deploy autonomous vehicles in the European Union countries. Advisory services has supported this project also in the early stages in the project development, and they have guided the project about their business plan, their financial structuring, etc. And then this is handed over to the EIB financing services. And this project is now currently assessed by the EIB for EIB financing. So in fact, these three examples are mainly the digital or automated technologies. In fact, the first two cases, so software as a service and mobility as a service, basically they were digital mobility platforms enabling electric vehicle mobility, and also enabling providing different transport options to the users. The third case was automated transport case, and future mobility is also supporting clean technology. In fact, to be more specific here, electric and hydrogen, in fact, they are the priority technologies currently. And these are the technologies also in line with the bank's climate bank roadmap, which has been published almost 6 months ago. And in fact, I would also suggest you will have a look at the climate bank roadmap of EIB, which technologies are eligible for EIB financing. So this will give you a good some good information about the EIB eligibilities in terms of clean transport, which is a very fast evolving field, and also in fact the eligibilities are also changing quite fast at this stage. So I suggest you will have a look at the climate bank roadmap of EIB, which is online and available on the EIB website. So this project is about the hydrogen fuel cell electric buses, and it is about retrofitting an entire fleet of diesel buses with the hydrogen technology. So it is about deploying hydrogen fuel cell electric buses as similar to the other cases. Advisory services, because these are new projects, these are innovative projects, market is not a mature market, so there is a substantial market risk, and also it is needed to establish a business case for these projects. So of course, advisory services has provided a great value added in project development of these projects. And then after providing several advisory services to this project, and now it is transferred to the EIB lending team for appraisal. In fact, basically these were the 4 cases from different fields: software as a service, mobility as a service, autonomous driving, and hydrogen technology in transport. Maybe just as a single sentence about to summarize about future mobility. Yes, to be eligible for future mobility facility, there should be a scale up. So as Juliet said, there is a minimum 7.5 million EIB lending, which means that 15 million, at least a 15 million investment, there should be an investment, which can be asset, transport assets like vehicles or charging stations or refueling stations, hydrogen refueling stations, or when the project is about a digital platform, the software development, IT development can be also an eligible investment for these projects. But there should be minimum 15 million investment, which makes these projects are really a scaling up projects. So in fact, these were the example cases. I hope these gave you a good understanding of which types of projects are in fact financed by Future Mobility Facility or in general EIB financing. And here you see the contact details of Juliet and myself, and then also we will try to answer your questions, I think, in question and answer session. But if you have further questions, or if we are not able to answer your questions, so difficult questions, so we will, of course, revert back to you with the answers. And this is all from my side. Thank you. Do you want to add anything, Juliet?
No, thank you very much. I think we've covered our points, and hopefully we've been clear. And yeah, we look forward to your questions.
Excellent. So thank you very much to you both for this interesting presentation. Several questions have come up in the chat. For those of you who still have questions, please notice that now we will go into the Q&A session. So all questions, you can just publish them here directly, either on the public chat or as a private message directly to me, and then I'll make sure to bring them up. So I have here been gathering the different questions that have come up. So the first question is, who bears the financial risk if a project fails? Does EIB provide respective guarantees?
On some projects, yes, we do provide guarantees, but of course this is transaction specific. Now, if we're talking about, say, a startup that doesn't really have any assets or any performance, then no. I mean, ultimately, we're not likely to give guarantees or such. But there is the opportunity for larger projects to obtain guarantees. So it is all, as I say, very transaction specific. And one thing that EIB is good at doing is looking on a case-by-case basis. So we like to see the whole picture of a project and make a decision. So it's not to say that you can have 2 very similar projects and they will have the same financing. We really like to look at all the dynamics within each individual project and craft or sculpture the financing around it. So yes, there is a possibility of guarantees, but it's subject to the type of transaction.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, with this disrupting link between transport and digital consumption, is there a focus in the portfolio for projects aiming at the link between conventional commerce transformation and urban freight? And then he mentions working, for instance, with wholesalers at large public logistics platforms, such as Rungis, Merck, or the like.
We haven't done so much, well, to my knowledge, we haven't done so much work with regards to distribution networks and such. But I don't think that's necessarily something that's off limits. I think it's all subject to what is eligible under the terms of the Future Mobility Facility or the Cleaner Transport Facility. Now, one has to identify the actual project itself. What is the investment? What are you looking for EIB to invest in? I mean, if you have a project and you have movers and shakers in the industry that come together as, say, a project team, and you have a specific project, then yes, we can definitely look at that. Our doors are always open to look at interesting projects, but it's up to promoters to bring the projects to us, and because ultimately we are a bank, so we're happy to finance what's out there, but it needs to be interesting, it needs to be bankable, therefore meaning that it's technically feasible, economically viable. Now, I don't think necessarily, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Ozan, but the two facilities that we talked of, the Cleaner Transport Facility and the Future Mobility Facility, they are more exactly focused on improving sustainable transport and mobility. However, if you wish to talk about venture debt to fund the project specifically outside of those two facilities, that could be an option. If you look to fund a project focused on obtaining an EIB loan, that could be a separate discussion. But under those two facilities themselves, I don't think there's a specific dynamic to look at distribution chains and networks. It's more transport chains and networks. But correct me if I'm wrong, Ozan. I mean,
exactly. Of course, these facilities, the Cleaner Transport Facility or Future Mobility Facilities, they have their own mandates, of course. But at the same time, of course, EIB financing is a broader picture, and EIB finances several different types of projects. Of course, under the EIB eligibilities. So in general, we can say EIB financing now is targeted on the sustainable transport solutions, regardless of Cleaner Transport Facility or Future Mobility Facility. We would like to see how the project demonstrates a clear benefit to society in terms of reducing environmental externalities or other externalities. I will open another discussion here, Juliet. Maybe we can also have a small chat about the ELENA maybe here, because this urban freight delivery is also something, an eligible field for ELENA. In fact, as Juliet mentioned, there is another advisory service that EIB provides on behalf of the Commission. This is ELENA, and the ELENA has also a transport angle. So basically, it has three pillars: residential buildings, energy, sustainable energy, and transport. And transport, only urban transport, urban mobility. And in this context, innovative transport projects, which can be alternative fuel projects, notably hydrogen and electric, infrastructure and assets, and also the solutions, innovative solutions, for example, enabling urban freight delivery in a cleaner way. So, as said before, the project should demonstrate a clear benefit to reducing CO2 emissions, NOx emissions, and modal shift if possible. So, a project specifically targeting providing an urban freight delivery solution, answering the last mile, the first mile, last mile problems, could be eligible for ELENA project development grant. So ELENA is not an investment grant, so it is a project development grant, so it can finance up to 90% of the project development activities. The details are also mentioned by Juliet on the slides. So that's one point. So Elena can be also eligible for urban freight solutions which are sustainable.
Okay, perfect. So the next question is, if a 7.5 million minimum loan, meaning 15 million project cost in total, would it rather be supported by the EIF instrument?
Well, EIF doesn't support necessarily individual projects as such. They tend to provide equity on a more portfolio basis. For small projects, I mean, the reality is that you need to start with sufficient equity. And so therefore you'd be looking at VCs and such equity houses to help finance there. And maybe if you've got to the point that you're sort of beyond startup and you're scale up, then that's where EIB could come in with regards to sort of the venture debt, the quasi-equity instruments that we offer. But for anything smaller than sort of the 7.5 million, even in terms of equity, I mean, EIF wouldn't necessarily be an option there. However, you know, we do intermediated loans and such, whereby EIB provides loans through intermediaries, and they then on lend. That could be a potential option for smaller scale projects. Again, not necessarily getting equity there, but getting funding in terms of loans from an intermediary. So there are options like that. But in terms of direct equity investment for anything smaller than 7.5, it's not really EIB Group's remit to do that.
Okay. Next question is, does the EIB invest alone in quasi-equity, or do you require other investors on FMF? FMF is therefore only for scale-ups, not applicable to startups.
Okay, yes, so yes, really it is for scale-ups. I mean, to get an understanding of the quasi-equity or the venture debt product, one must understand that, you know, startups, it depends also what kind of startup you are. Some startups come with buckets of money, and some startups come with an empty bucket. You know, the startup is more at the position you are on the growth curve, let's say. But in terms of the venture debt facility, it requires, part of the eligibility requirements are a minimum of 3 years of performance. So a minimum 3 years of, say, counts. So therefore, you need to show that you have been making some money or been active in the market for a minimum of 3 continuous years. Now, in terms of, you know, other opportunities for lending, that, you know, this is why we set a minimum of the 7.5. Although it's not there for, let's say, the classic startup. You know, the guy in the garage that's come with a good product and, you know, he's managed to get some funding along the way. You know, we do aim for the larger of the startup world, let's say, which I guess relative to most of our clients, we consider startups, but in reality, they're really scale-ups. They're looking to move to commercialization, growth stage, basically.
Okay, perfect. The next question is, any support for Series A seed financing or fostering the inclusion of early stage startups in large consortia to meet minimum size criteria?
No, that's not something that we actively do. Though, of course, we do have a network of you know, VCs, accelerators, you know, and potential investors on our database that we can help connect promoters with. But if you're at the seed stage, you know, really, you're not really at the bankable stage, and that's where these facilities and the EIB activity really comes into developing. We like to go a bit beyond that. As mentioned in the slides, we're more sort of looking at the companies that have done a Series B raise, potentially a Series C raise. So, seed, we appreciate it's very difficult. Everyone has to start somewhere, but unfortunately, it's not something that EIB can ordinarily assist with. But having said that, when you get to the point that you have achieved Series A and Series B, and potentially Series C, our doors are wide open, and we're all ears to listen to what your project could offer.
Perfect. Next question. For finance advisory, is there a minimum project size, minimum cost to have access for this? I think I heard this. It's not the case, but this is just to confirm.
No, I mean, there's no minimum, essentially. We don't say, oh, okay, you need to have 7.5 million minimum or 15 million minimum eligible cost. However, we can give you advisory, but the point of the matter is, we are a bank at the end of the day. So there is some funding, hopefully, to be achieved from providing the advisory. There is some opportunity for you to achieve funding in the markets, either without EIB or with EIB. So therefore, we don't have a minimum requirement in terms of the advisory, but we expect the projects to be at a certain stage, whether you're pre-bankable and we can help you bridge that, cross the bridge in terms of being bankable, that's where we step in. But we're not here to, we just don't have the resources and capacity necessary to sort of hold the hands of promoters that are at the seed stage or, below Series B or Series C. So ideally, it's best to come forwards and achieve advisory or obtain advisory services when you can say, yes, I have, a 15 million upwards project. EIB, could you please help me with advisory services so that, we can help you develop your business plan, we can help you develop your strategy coordination and development. If you need assistance in terms of raising equity, we can therefore then look at helping you with equity pitch materials and such, connect you where possible with our relevant industry contacts, etc. So these services are available. We don't put a minimum on the project, though we do expect it to be at a stage that it could actually be bankable for EIB itself and commercially too.
Okay, so the next question, taking it in parts, because there have been an exchange of messages in this regard. The question is, what about finance related to projects for decarbonization of shipping industry? So commercial vessels specifically, which are regularly calling EU ports. So here what they are talking about is that it could be very interesting to know about the investment possibility into the asset itself, not just the infrastructure, like, for example, a new engine, and also not only looking into the fleet, but also the associated processes such as ship cleaning, degassing, and so on.
I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a specific question about shipping, but yes, in principle, yes, EIB finances also the shipping projects, so the vessels itself, but also, of course, they should be fall into the EIB eligibility. And also if the project is including innovation in itself, so featured mobility also can be an option. But I'd really suggest, in fact, to have a look at the climate bank roadmap of EIB to see the eligibilities of the sector, shipping industry, and also in maritime transport in general. In fact, it is there are currently discussions about the decarbonization of shipping industry and also maritime transport. But in principle, yes, shipping projects or maritime transport projects in general, EIB financing is available for the projects for the eligible projects for EIB financing.
Perfect. So, in relation to digital solution scale-ups, can you give some more details about the minimum required numbers in terms of EBITDA, number of clients, total market size, and so on?
In fact, I assume this is for EIB financing. There is no requirement for EBITDA or markets, but again, so the main indicator for us to qualify for EIB financing, first of all, the eligibility. So this is the number one thing we are looking at. The other is the minimum investment size. So 15 million. There should be 15 million eligible investment cost for EIB. This can change. This 15 million, of course, requires different project components in different projects. So for example, for an asset intensive project, this 15 million will be very easy to reach. For example, if you want to finance 30 hydrogen buses, so you can easily reach this 15 million investment. But on the other hand, if you are doing a digital platform, as in the question, 15 million for example, in 3 years as investment could be difficult. So as an answer to your question, there is no EBITDA requirement or market or client minimum. What we are looking at really the investment components that could be eligible for EIB financing. These are also including the platform development for deployment purpose. Yes, if he can find this 15 million, then the project can be eligible for EIB financing.
Perfect. And just so you all know, I have put here in the chat directly the link in order to download the EIB Group Climate Bank Roadmap. So you have direct access to it there. So next question. It seems that the first go-to would be to connect with Innofin Advisory to get a clear landscape of what is suitable to finance research and innovation projects that are within the scope. So I believe they request a confirmation of this.
Yeah, if you're a promoter and you think have an interesting project and you would be interested in exploring EIB financing, absolutely reach out to advisory first. I mean, we can discuss the dynamics of your project with you and give you an overview of potential viability and the eligibility within for the purposes of EIB products. And also we can talk to you, of course, of how to develop the packaging of the product better, and the credit stories, essentially help you with the credit narrative that not only benefits an application for EIB lending, but also for external financing. So yeah, definitely reach out to us. We'll take a look. In any case, we will get back to you to say yes or no. I mean, if this is something that we could work with or we could help you develop or not. But ultimately, we'd always like to give some recommendations anyway. So even if a project doesn't quite work with what EIB has to offer, we're happy to suggest other potential routes using the knowledge base.
Excellent. So the next question is regard to a disruptive European mobility project. So it's a project of 8 years entry in the market with a very high return on investment. It is confirmed to fulfill and anticipate the strategic EU Commission objectives, especially those related to the European Green Deal and the European Clean Hydrogen Alliance. So the question is, can EIB guarantee and manage to find at least one financing bank, implementing partner, available to finance the project for earlier entry in the market?
I'm just trying to, is it saying, can EIB guarantee?
Yes, can EIB guarantee and manage to find at least one financing bank?
I know. I mean, we're not going to guarantee you that we will find you a financing bank. I mean, at the end of the day, we will support you, but it's up to the promoter to do the work, to do the discussions, to go out there, to network and communicate and get the requisite financing, because ultimately EIB can only finance up to 50%, and we're not necessarily here to dictate to other banks and pull them into projects. It's their decision to make, just as we've made ours. I talked earlier about the signaling effect that EIB lending or EIB interest in a project tends to provide, in that if an EIB is in a project, a lot of private sector investors and lenders are, it provides a sense of comfort to them. But we are never going to, say to any lender or investor, even those that we work closely with, and say, okay, we have this project, please take it. So we can definitely not guarantee you, but we can obviously provide you the links and the network to go out there and have discussions with external parties.
Thank you very much. So one of the final questions: to what extent does the EU taxonomy / EIB eligibility criteria not allow to finance vessels with an LGN fueled propulsion? That would be for you, Osman.
Yeah, exactly. So this is, yes, I'm not a maritime expert, so I have also asked my colleague to answer that question, but this is something really in discussion. So this is a really hot topic. I would like to avoid answering this question now, but of course later I will come back to that. So this is very sensitive topic. So what I can say, and we will revert back to you to provide an answer.
Pending on answers. So there's a question here that asked me if I can share the email contacts of the panelists here in the chat or by email. Would you agree that I indicate your contact data directly here in the chat?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And we'll of course also make them available afterwards once we publish. So as I have indicated in the beginning, this webinar has been recorded and it will be made public. We would need a couple of more weeks in order to get the approval, in order to also publish the PowerPoint presentation as such as of EIB. But once we have those formalities in order, we will also make sure to publish it on our website and make that available. So yes, I will make sure just to send to you right here the contact data. Just 1 second. And meanwhile, I'm gonna take advantage and especially you, Juliet and Othman, thank you very much for all of your great help and a very interesting webinar. If anybody else have any further questions, this would be the perfect opportunity to speak to Othman and Juliet. And otherwise, I have just copied to you here their email addresses, so you could request some more information from them. And I imagine also in regards to this last question, Othman, that is a bit more sensitive and a bit more difficult. Maybe they will get directly in contact with you. So if there are no further questions, all there's left is to thank everybody for attending. Thank you, Juliet and Othman, for participating. And in case you have any regards or any questions in regard to the Entrance project or to the Entrance Matchmaking Platform, please do not hesitate to enter the website of the Entrance project. I will also make sure to put that here now. And there you also have directly our contact data. The webinar will be directly published on the website and also on the Entrance platform. So there I have just put the link here in the chat so you can see it at another time. So thank you very much, everybody, and we will finish the session of today.
Great, thanks for having us. Much appreciated. I hope it's been useful to all.
Thank you very much.
Without any doubt, without any doubt. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Hmm.